Hello and welcome back to another lecture. In today's lecture, I want to share this DevOps technical interview with you. I did this interview last December and the company offered me $170,000. The interview process for this particular company had 3 stages, and this technical interview was the final one. The interview was 1 hour 30 minutes long. We spent the first 30 minutes on technical questions, and after that, they sent me this email with the instructions of the exercise they wanted me to complete. The interview started at 11 a.m. and if you look at the timestamp, this email was sent to me at 11:27. I had to use the remaining 1 hour to complete this technical interview. We did the interview on Zoom and they asked me to share my screen. Once I shared my screen, I began to work on the exercise and my interviewer was watching everything I was doing. In this lecture, I want to show you the exact process I used to complete this technical interview. The first thing I did was I read these instructions to take some mental notes. Here they mention that the interview is going to be 1 hour 30 minutes long. The first 30 minutes is for technical questions, and after that I'm going to complete this technical exercise. Then the next part here is where they will give me access to their AWS account. This is the console URL I will click on to log into their AWS account. And here, this is my login information. Once I clicked on the URL to sign into the management console, my interviewer sent me my password. These are the things the company wants me to complete. First, they want me to create a VPC with 1 private subnet and 1 public subnet. Then for step 2, they want me to deploy Jenkins on an EC2 instance. And here they mention that I can install Jenkins any way that I want. I can use regular install, pre-built AMI or container. They also mentioned that I would have to SSH into that EC2 instance. So what I'm doing now is I am taking notes on the things that I need. The next thing I have to do is configure a DNS record for the Jenkins node. And what this means is, instead of accessing the Jenkins server with the public IPv4 address, we will access the server with a DNS record in Route 53. So here they want me to create the DNS record. For step 4, they want me to make Jenkins accessible only on my IP address on the appropriate ports. So what this means is only someone that is on my IP address can access the Jenkins server. Even my interviewers will not be able to access the Jenkins server. So here they are testing my knowledge on if I know how to control traffic with security groups. So all I am doing at this point is reading the instructions and taking some mental notes. The final instruction is to secure the Jenkins application with username and password. So once I have read the instructions, the first thing I did was create my VPC with public and private subnets. And this is the exact thing that I did. So what I did was I minimized my screen. When I started learning about AWS and even now, for any service that I configure, I always create a note to myself on the steps that I use to configure that service. And for VPC, I already had a note on my computer that I created on the steps to create a VPC. This is exactly what I did during the interview. I clicked on my notes to open it. My interviewer saw the notes and I put it to the side somewhere here. So what I'm doing now is I'm showing you the exact step that I used to complete this technical interview. I put my notes to the side and I'm going to pin it here. To be honest with you, my interviewers were actually impressed that I had a note on how to create a VPC. Then the next thing I did is I went back to the management console. Once I'm in the management console, I created the VPC following these steps. According to my steps, the first thing I want to do is select the region. I want to create the VPC in the Northern Virginia region, so I made sure I'm in the Northern Virginia region here. Then once I've done that, the second step is to create the VPC. In the search box, I'll type VPC. Then I select VPC under Services. On the VPC dashboard, select your VPCs and click Create VPC. We'll give the VPC a name. I'll call it Test VPC. The VPC will have a public IPv4 CIDR block, and for the CIDR block, I use 10.0.0.0/16. Then here, I'll just scroll down. This is all we need to create a VPC and click Create VPC. Once I've created the VPC, the next thing I need to do is enable DNS host name in the VPC. So what I would do is here, select Actions, and select Edit DNS host names. On this page, all we need to do to enable the DNS host name is check it here. Once you've checked it, click Save Changes. According to my notes, the next step is to create an internet gateway. So here, I'm going to come on the left side, select Internet Gateways. Then click Create Internet Gateway. I gave my internet gateway a name. I'll call it Test Internet Gateway. Once I've given it a name, I'll click Create Internet Gateway. According to my notes, once I've created the Internet Gateway, I need to attach it to the VPC. I am in the Internet Gateway already, so I'll click Actions here and attach it to the VPC. So click Attach to VPC. Here, you select this drop down and you'll see the test VPC we just created. I selected it and click Attach Internet Gateway. Once I've attached the Internet Gateway to the VPC, then I can create my public subnet. To create the subnet, I'll come to the left side and select Subnets. To filter by your VPC, you can select in here and select your test VPC. And it is going to filter it by your VPC. And as you can see in our VPC, there isn't any subnet in there. So I'll click Create Subnet. I'll select the VPC I want to create this subnet in. Select this drop down and I select the test VPC. Then I scroll down. Here, I'll give the subnet a name. I'll call it Public Subnet. Once I've given the subnet a name, I select this drop down to select the availability zone. I'll put it in US East 1A. Then for the CIDR block, I'm going to use 10.0.0.0/24. Once you've entered the CIDR block, scroll down and click Create Subnet. Once I've created the subnet, the next thing I need to do is enable auto-assign IP settings. To do that, I'll select the public subnet. Then I'm going to select Actions and select Edit Subnet Settings. Here, under Auto-Assign IP Settings, we are going to enable it by clicking here. Then scroll down and click Save. The next thing I need to do is create a route table that I called Public Route Table. To create the route table, I'll select Route Tables here. And I'll click Create Route Table. I'll give the route table a name. I'll call it Public Route Table. Once I've given the route table a name, I'll select the VPC I want to create it in. I'll select my test VPC, then click Create Route Table. Once I've created the route table, on step 9, I need to add a public route to this route table. To add a public route to this route table, select the Route tab. And I'm going to minimize this for now. Then I'm going to click Edit Route. Here we will add a new route by clicking Add Route. This route table is going to be routing traffic to anywhere on the internet. And the traffic going anywhere on the internet is going to be 0.0.0.0/0. So I'll enter that in here. Once I enter the destination, for the target, select in here. This route table is going to be routing traffic through the internet gateway. So I selected the internet gateway. And here you can see my test internet gateway. I selected it and click Save Changes. The next thing I need to do is associate the public subnet with the route table. To associate the public subnet with the route table, select the Subnet Associations tab. I'm going to minimize this for now. And I'll click Edit Subnet Associations. You can see the public subnet here. I'll select it and click Save Associations. So if we go back to the Subnet Associations tab again, you can see the public subnet is associated with this route table. The last step on my instruction is to create the private subnet. So I'm going to come to the subnet. I'll click Create Subnet. I'll select the VPC I want to create the subnet in. I'll give the subnet a name. I'll call it private subnet. Once I've given the subnet a name, I'll select the availability zone. So here I'll put it in US East 1A again. And for the CIDR block, I'm going to give this subnet 10.0.1.0/24. Once you've entered your CIDR block, scroll down and click Create Subnet. This completes the first question on my technical interview. This is how you create a VPC with a public and private subnet. If you want to learn how to be efficient at creating VPC and understanding the difference between VPC with a public and private subnet, I have a lot of tutorial on this channel that shows you how to create a VPC. I also have some projects that I did. I'll leave the link in the description. You can buy those projects, and these are full projects that will teach you how to deploy an application on AWS. This is the exact thing that I did to get a job, so I'm sharing everything with you. Once I completed the first question, I closed this instruction because I don't need it anymore. The second question is to deploy Jenkins on an EC2 instance in the new VPC that I just created, and I can deploy Jenkins any way that I want. I decided to use an EC2 instance to deploy Jenkins, and this is exactly what I did. I minimized this for now. For any service that I configure in AWS when I'm practicing, I always create a note on the steps that I use to configure it. So I also have a note for EC2 instance. So I opened my notes, and I promise you, when I opened my notes, my interviewer can see my notes. They don't want me working on the other screen. They said anything that I'm doing, I need to be doing it on the main screen that they can see. So I opened my notes on this screen. This is my note to launch an EC2 instance. And on this note, I just have some checklists. I need to make sure that I've selected the right region. I need to launch the EC2 instance in a VPC, select the right subnet and availability zone. I need to set up the security groups and open the necessary ports to allow traffic to flow into the EC2 instance. And I also need to create a key pair so I'll be able to SSH into the EC2 instance. These are my steps to create an EC2 instance. So what I did is I came back to the management console. Before I started launching the EC2 instance, the next thing I did was look for the documentation to deploy Jenkins on an EC2 instance. This is exactly what I did. And mind you, prior to this technical interview, I have not deployed Jenkins before. So this is another point I want to make. It is okay if they ask you to do something and you don't know it. One of the valuable skills you will need is how to look for the documentation to configure any type of service you are trying to create. Here, I'm trying to install Jenkins on an EC2 instance. So the critical and valuable aspect of this is to look for the documentation to install Jenkins on an EC2 instance. So while my interviewers are watching, this is what I did. I opened Google and I typed how to install Jenkins on an EC2 instance. Once I type how to install Jenkins on an EC2 instance, you can see the results here. Here, there are some videos I can watch, but I'm pretty sure they don't want me to watch the video. Here, you can see the Jenkins documentation, and it says Jenkins on AWS. This looks like what I'm looking for, so I selected it. Once I'm on this page, the first thing I did was read the description. And you can see the second paragraph. It says, this tutorial walks you through the process of deploying a Jenkins application. You will launch an EC2 instance. So I know this is what I'm looking for. So now I'm not going to deploy it. I'm just looking through the instructions to glance over what I need. Here you can see the prerequisite. I need an AWS account. I need to create a key pair. So here they give you the exact step on how to create a key pair in your AWS account. I already know how to create a key pair. So here I'm just keep scrolling down. The next thing I need is a security group. And if we look at the security groups down here, it is showing us how to configure our security group. I know I need an SSH security group because I have to SSH into my EC2 instance to install Jenkins. And here, the next security group rule I need to open is on port 8080. Right now, I know I need to SSH into my EC2 instance that is port 22, and Jenkins works on port 8080. The next instruction here is how to launch your EC2 instance, and if I keep scrolling down, this part is how to SSH into the EC2 instance. I already know all these things, so I'm going to scroll down. This is the part I need, downloading and installing Jenkins. The next thing I need to do is go into the management console, launch my EC2 instance, then I'll come back to this step to install Jenkins. This is exactly what I did during the interview. In the management console, I typed EC2 in the search box and select EC2 under services. On the EC2 dashboard, the first thing I want to do is create a key pair. So I'm going to scroll down here. Under network and security, I select key pairs. And the next thing I did was create a key pair. Click create key pair. Give the key pair a name. I'll call it Jenkins key pair. Once I have given the key pair a name, the key pair type is going to be RSA, and I am using Windows to SSH into my EC2 instance. So I'll select .ppk so I can use PuTTY to SSH into it. Once I've selected all these settings, I'm going to click create key pair. When you create a key pair, it is going to download the private key to your computer, and you can see my private key here. The next thing I'm going to do is create the security groups that I need. On this page, I'm going to scroll down. Under network and security, select security groups. Click create security group. Give the security group a name. We'll call it Jenkins security group. Once you've given the security group a name, we will use the same name as the description. Then the next thing we will do is select the VPC we want to create this security group in. I'll click this X to remove this VPC, and I'll select the test VPC I created. Then under inbound rules, we will open the ports. Remember, the two ports we want to open is port 22 and port 8080. So here I'm going to click add rule. The first rule I'm going to add is for SSH, so I'll select this drop down and select SSH. SSH is on port 22. And remember, you should always limit your SSH rule to your IP address. So under source, select this drop down and select my IP. The next rule I need to open according to the Jenkins documentation is on port 8080. So here I'll click add rule, and it is going to be custom TCP. For port, we are going to type 8080. And for the source of this traffic, remember the instruction they gave me in this exercise. They want me to configure Jenkins so that it is only accessible from my IP address. That is what we will do here. Instead of opening this to the world, here we are just going to select this drop down and select my IP. So this means that only my IP address can access the Jenkins server. Then these are the ports we need to open. Scroll down and click create security group. We have created the key pair and the security group. Now we can launch our EC2 instance. So I'll select EC2 dashboard. I'll select instances and I'll click launch instances. We'll give the instance a name. I'll call it Jenkins server. Once you've given it a name, scroll down. For the AMI, we will select Amazon Linux, and it is going to be Amazon Linux 2 AMI. Make sure it is the free tier 1. Scroll down. Under instance type, it is going to be T2 Micro. Make sure it is the free tier 1. Under key pair, select the drop down, and we will select our Jenkins key pair. Scroll down. Under network settings, click edit. We'll select our VPC. So select this drop down and select the test VPC. For the subnet, select this drop down and select the public subnet. Scroll down. Under firewall security groups, we will select an existing security group. And here we will select this drop down and select our Jenkins security group. These are all the settings we need to launch our EC2 instance. So here we'll click Launch Instance. We have successfully launched the EC2 instance. You can click View All Instances here. And on this page, I'm going to click the refresh button so I can see my EC2 instance. Before we SSH into this EC2 instance, there's one more thing we need to set up. According to the instruction they gave me, here they want me to configure a DNS record for this Jenkins server. To configure a DNS record for this Jenkins server, remember one thing we have to do is our Jenkins server has a public IPv4 address, and this is how we SSH into our EC2 instance. This IPv4 address, anytime you stop and start your EC2 instance, you get a new IPv4 address. So in order to configure a DNS record for our Jenkins server, we need a static IPv4 address. And what I mean by a static IPv4 address is it is an address that will not change regardless of whether we stop and start our Jenkins server. To create this IP address in AWS, remember it is an elastic IP address. So here on your EC2 dashboard, scroll down. Under Network and Security, you'll see elastic IPs here, select it. What we will do here is we will create an elastic IP and we will associate that elastic IP with the EC2 instance. To allocate the elastic IP, click Allocate Elastic IP Address here. Then here you don't need to do much. All you need to do is scroll down and click Allocate. We've allocated the elastic IP. It is here. Make sure it is selected. Then click Actions. And we are going to associate the elastic IP address. So click Associate Elastic IP Address. Here we will associate it to an instance and we will select the instance from this drop-down. It is the Jenkins server. I selected it. Then we will select the private IP address of the Jenkins server. So select this drop-down. This is the private IP address of the Jenkins server. Select it. Once you have selected these two options, click Associate. This is all we need to do to associate our elastic IP with the EC2 instance. Take note of this elastic IP. Now let's go back to the EC2 instance dashboard and I'll select Instances. On this page, the first thing you have to do is refresh the page. So I'll click the refresh button and select your Jenkins server again. This time you can see we have an elastic IP in here and the public IPv4 address is the same as the elastic IP. So now if we stop and start this Jenkins server, our IP address will be the same. Once we've done this, now we can SSH into our EC2 instance. So what I'll do is copy this public IPv4 address. Then I'm going to open PuTTY to SSH into my EC2 instance. Mind you, these are the steps that I was using during the technical interview. My interviewers are watching everything that I was doing. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'll type the username, ec2-user at the IP address I just copied. The host name will be ec2-user at the IP address I copied here. Then once we've entered that, I always like to improve my appearance. So I'll select Appearance. I'll change the font to 16. Click OK. Then under SSH, I'll select the plus. And once you drop it down, select the auth, not the plus, the auth. Then we'll browse to where we saved our key pair. Click Browse. This is my Jenkins key pair. I'll select it and click Open. This is all I need to do to SSH into my EC2 instance. Remember, all you need is to, under Session, enter your host name. Once you've entered your host name, then come to SSH. Under Auth, upload your private key pair here and click Open. Then here, click Yes. And there you go. I've SSH into my EC2 instance. Once we've SSH into the EC2 instance, all we need to do is run the commands to install Jenkins. So what I did is I docked this here and this here. Then I opened the Jenkins documentation and I just scroll down. Here you can see to install Jenkins on an EC2 instance, they have numbered the steps here. So I didn't have too much time to read this. You can kind of glance over it. I know I need to follow these steps. So what I did was I just copied these commands, and I can kind of recognize some of these commands already. The first one is updating all the packages on my EC2 instance. So I paste that command in here, press enter. Then I'm going to run the second command. So I'm going to copy this and paste it here, press enter. This is exactly what I was doing during the interview. Then I'll come to the third command, copy everything here, paste it here, press enter. Then I need to copy this command here and paste it here and press enter. I'm going to type Y for yes and press enter. I'll wait for my shell prompt to be available. My shell prompt is available. The next instruction says I have to install Java, so I'll copy this and paste it here and press enter. So let me scroll down here and we are on step 5. Once this command has been completed, we will run command number 5. And there you go, my shell prompt is available. So what I can do here is clear the screen for now. So you can see it. I'll clear the screen and I'll run command number 5. This is exactly what I was doing during the interview. I'll copy it and paste it there and press enter. And there you go, it has installed Jenkins. My shell prompt is available. So I'll copy command number 6, paste it here and press enter. Then copy command number 7, paste it here and press enter. Once this command is done, we'll copy this command. There you go, my shell prompt is available. So I'll paste the next command in there and press enter. And you can see Jenkins is start. So once we verify that Jenkins is start and running, that's all we need to do here. So we will scroll down. This part is saying how to configure Jenkins. So all it says is to connect to your Jenkins server, we need to copy this. So I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to paste it in my notepad for now. I'm just going to come down here, paste it in there. And I need to replace this with the public DNS of my EC2 instance. So I'll go to the management console. Let me maximize this for now so you can see it. This is the public IPv4 DNS of my EC2 instance. Make sure you select the public DNS, not the private one. Once you select it, copy it here. Then we'll come back to the notepad and we are going to replace it here. So make sure you replace everything with the greater than and less than. Then paste it there. This is what we will use to access our Jenkins server. So I'll copy it and open a new web browser and paste it in there. Once you paste it, press enter. And there you go. We can access our Jenkins server. The next thing we need to do is unlock Jenkins. So what you can do is come back to the documentation. On the documentation, this is where it shows you how to unlock Jenkins. And to unlock Jenkins, all you have to do is run this command and it is going to give you the secret, and we can paste the secret in this box and click continue. So copy this command and go back to your SSH session. I'm going to clear the screen for now. Then I'll paste that command in here and press enter. When you paste the command and press enter, you can see the secret here. So select this secret and press Ctrl+C to copy it. Once you copy the secret, come back to Jenkins and in here, I'm going to paste the secret in there. Once you've pasted the secret, click Continue. On this page, we will click Install Suggested Plugins. It is now installing the plugins and we'll give it some time to finish installing them. Once you have installed all the plugins for Jenkins, this is the last step. According to the instruction, the last step says secure the Jenkins application with a username and password. So this is where we set our username and password. I will enter a username, then I will enter a password. Then I'll confirm the password here. I will enter my full name, and I will enter my email. Once you've entered the information, click Save and Continue. When you click Save and Continue, it is going to bring you to this page. And there's one last thing we need to do. Remember, according to our instructions, they want us to configure a DNS record to be able to access our Jenkins server from the DNS record. So that's what we would do before we configure this part. So to do that, I'll go back to my management console. I'm going to right click on the AWS logo and click Open Link in New tab. I'll go to that tab. I'll type Route 53 in this search box and select Route 53 under Services. Remember when I was doing the interview, they provided the hosted zone to me. In my AWS account that I'm using to share this tutorial with you, I already have a Route 53 hosted zone, so I'm going to use that. So I'm going to click Hosted Zone here. In my hosted zone, I'll select my domain name. And in my domain name, we will create a record here. To create a record, we'll click Create Record. I'll give the record a name. I'll call it www for the subdomain name. The record is going to be an A record. And for the value of the record, this is where we will put the elastic IP we allocated here. To get the elastic IP, go back to your EC2 console. The elastic IP is here. You can copy it. Then come back to Route 53. We'll paste it in here. This is all we need to do to create the record. Click Create Records. We have successfully created the record. You can click View Status here to make sure that the status is being created. It is still pending. I'll give it some time and I'll click Refresh to make sure that the status has been completed. And there you go. The status of the record is in sync. So I'm just going to click this back again to come back to my record. This is the A record we just created. I'll select it. Then I'll copy the record name. Once you copy the record name, we will finish setting up Jenkins. So I'll come back to the Jenkins setup. Here, all we need to do is replace this part from the EC2 to the .com with our record name. So I'm going to right click and paste in there. So this is what it looks like. It is http:// record name 8080. So once you've entered this information, you can change it later on once you finish setting up Jenkins. This is not really that important. So once you set up this, click Save and Finish. We are done setting up Jenkins. So I'll click Start using Jenkins. This is all I did to complete that technical interview. I didn't access the Jenkins on my record name during the interview because if you look according to the instruction they gave me, the domain name they provided to me is not a real domain. They just wanted to see if I can set up the record in Route 53. I still want to show you how to access your Jenkins server with the record set. So here I'll open a new tab. And to access your Jenkins server, all we'll do is paste our record name that we copied there and we'll type :8080. Once you type your record name :8080, press enter. And there you go. You can see we can access our Jenkins server with our record name. Here, I'm just going to log in. This is all I did during the technical interview, and I was offered $170,000. Let's talk about some takeaway from this interview. The point of this interview is not to see if I can install Jenkins server. They just wanted to test my critical knowledge skills to make sure that I understand the process of deploying an application in AWS and the steps that I need to follow. So they are analyzing everything from having notes that shows how to deploy a VPC, how to launch an EC2 instance, referencing the documentation. If you don't know something, searching for it in Google and finding your answer. They just want to know that you understand how to deploy an application in AWS with little supervision. So my advice to you is, anytime you are creating a resource in AWS, don't memorize the steps to create that resource. What you need to learn is the high-level knowledge of the things you need to do for the application to function properly. Here you can see that I don't know all the commands to install Jenkins, but the good thing about the cloud industry is there are tons of resources online that no matter what type of application you are trying to deploy, you will find the documentation on it online. So here, the point is not to memorize all these commands. The point is to know all the steps you need to take to make sure that your Jenkins server is up and running. And here you can see what we did. You have to understand how to set up your VPC with public and private subnets, how to create security groups and open the necessary ports, how to create your key pair, how to launch your EC2 instance, how to SSH into your EC2 instance and install the softwares. So there is a series of steps you have to follow, and I think that was what they were testing me on, not just to see if I can install Jenkins. If you want to learn how to be efficient in AWS, I have lots of free tutorials on this channel, and I also have some projects that I've created. I'll leave the link in the description. I guarantee if you take these projects, it will teach you everything that I know and the thought process to understand these things. So that is pretty much it. But before we end this lecture, let's delete all the resources we created. So the first thing I'm going to do is delete the record set from Route 53. Select the record set and click Delete Record. Then click Delete. The next thing we will do is go to our EC2 console, and we are going to terminate the Jenkins server. Select it. Once you select the Jenkins server, click Instance State and select Terminate Instance. Then click Terminate. Once you've terminated the EC2 instance, we'll click Refresh here, and you can see the instance is shutting down. The next thing we can do is delete the key pair. So on this left side, I'll scroll down, select key pairs, select your Jenkins key pair, select Actions, and click Delete. Type Delete in here, and click Delete. We have deleted the key pair. The next thing we need to do, which is very important, is for elastic IP address. When you allocate them and you are not using it, AWS will charge you for it. So for the elastic IP address you allocated, let's release it. So once you have terminated the EC2 instance, which should be terminated by now, let's go to elastic IPs. We will select the elastic IP we allocated, then click Actions and click Release Elastic IP Addresses. Then click Release. The next thing we need to do is delete the VPC. When we delete the VPC, it is going to delete the security groups, the subnets, and the route table. So we will type VPC in the search box and select VPC under Services. On the VPC dashboard, select your VPCs, select the test VPC, select Actions, and select Delete VPC. Type Delete in here and click Delete. This is how we clean up all the resources we created. If you want to learn how to be efficient in AWS, I'll leave a link in the description on the project you can complete that shows you how to build application in AWS from the ground up. Everything that I'm sharing with you in these projects are things that I did to get a job and to be efficient at AWS. I'm still learning as well. So if you have any questions about the lecture or the interview process, please leave your comments below. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye.